James Henry, yes, James Henry.
Okay, we all ready?
I tripped over the on my hair.
Well, most of us don't have that problem.
Good morning. It's 9 o'clock and time for the June 18th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County. We're going to begin with a moment of silent reflection for first responders. And on today, when you're remembering the first responders, you keep in mind David Fleetwood. He is a longtime county employee who just a few months ago retired, but just recently passed. After the moment of silence, there'll be an invocation by Reverend Hugh King, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Peter O'Brien. Please rise.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today thankful for the privilege to live in this wonderful community in the Indian River County. We would be mindful of a family today who is grieving the loss of someone they love dearly. And we would come today to ask wisdom and strength and guidance from you, because we realize that at our best, we are not all knowing, we are not all understanding, and we are not all powerful. We proclaim that you are, and we believe that you instruct us that if we seek from you wisdom, we will find it. And so I pray that that would abound in this meeting today. We thank you for each one who serves, and we especially want to thank you for the years that Stan Bowling has given to Indian River County and for the difference he has made. And for everything you do, may we be quick to give you thanks and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Reverend King. Moving on to additions, deletions to the agenda. Gentlemen, there are a number of them, so I'll go through them before I ask the commissioners if they have their individual changes. The first is, you notice that this is a crowded room. Half the people are here to say goodbye to Stan Bowling. I'm not quite sure what that means, but I'd like the community development group to be able to get back to work. So if it's okay, I would like to reverse order of that proclamation and presentation, which will be at the beginning of the meeting. Also, Commissioner Adams, would you like to have your matter 14B1 moved up to follow 5A?
Yes, please, thank you.
Commissioner Zork, would you like to have your matter 14E1 follow 10B1?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
County Attorney would like to add an emergency item on Sunbreak Farms under County Attorney matters. And I'd like to move 12F1, which is an update on Virgin Trains permitting so that our traffic engineer can get to an MUTCD meeting. Now, generally, we wouldn't want to just change the agenda like this, but in celebration of the fact that I'm not going to an MUTCD meeting, I'd like to see if the board would allow that. And just for the people who are here who don't know what that acronym stands for, and that's everybody except for the traffic engineer and Rich Spierka, that's the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Division. And for many here today, the big change, and the big change on the agenda, many of you here for the medical and pharmacy benefit. And the way it looks like right now, if we go with the regular agenda, we'll start that item, end up breaking for lunch, and then coming back for the discussion on the item. So I want to see if the board would just like to make that item a time certain of 1 o'clock so that the people who want to be here for that item know when it will be, and we'll be able to do something else for the next 4 hours if they don't want to listen to our stimulating discussion. I will.
Chairman, I'm very happy with the time certain of 1 o'clock. I think that'd be good, and the employees can know what time they need to be back instead of sitting here all morning, so.
Great, so those are my proposed changes. Anybody else on the dais have any changes?
Yeah, and then the 12F1, where did you want to move that to?
I'm sorry, I wanted to move that right after public discussion.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chairman, I have 2 items I'd like to add. One is, since we're going to have a time certain on the health benefits, Mr. Steve Myers, who represents the Teamsters, has to leave for negotiations down in Miami. So I'd like to see if the board will let him speak as, under public speaking 10B2. And then I'd like to add an item under my matters, 14D1, related to elevation certificates. There's been kind of a very recent confusion over that, and I'd like to have staff give us some direction and clear that up.
Okay, and you wanted the first item, Mr. Myers, under, right after public discussion?
10B2, I believe it would be.
Very good. And your matters, again, the topic of it is,
Elevation certificates.
anybody else have any proposed changes?
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification on the 1 PM time certain, is that for the discussion portion only
No,
where we
that-
will?
That's for everything. I don't want
For
them having
everything.
to break it up. I think it'll flow better if everybody's together for the staff presentation and then the discussion.
Okay.
And that way, people, if they don't want to stay here right now, can leave for the next 4 hours and then come back at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
So they'll have that choice, I think.
We have to, we'll stay, though.
We stay,
Stay.
yeah, until 2, yes. Now, if there's a couple individual commissioners who want to go,
Yeah, only 3 of us got to
we may not object.
We need 3.
So, yeah, that's it. So if that's okay, anybody, any other changes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to
Mr.
approve the
Chairman,
agenda as
move
amended.
approval as amended.
Second?
We have the motion to approve the agenda as amended by Commissioner Fleischer, seconded by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. We now move to 5B, which is the presentation of a proclamation honoring Stan Bowling on his retirement from Indian River County Board of County Commissioners. Good morning, Stan. I'd like to invite you to this and any members of your family who are with you today.
Yeah, if I could, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Chairman, if they can remain sitting for a while.
That's certainly, it's
Good.
this is your moment. I'm not about to try to
Thank you.
dictate it.
Thank you very much.
So I am very happy to read this proclamation honoring Stan Bowling on his retirement from Indian River County Board of County Commissioners, Department of Community Development. Whereas Stan Bowling retires from the Indian River County Department of Community Development as of July 23rd, 2019. And whereas Stan began his career with Indian River County on August 6th, 1984, as a staff planner, was promoted to current development section chief on February 2nd, 1987, was promoted to planning director on February 2nd, 1990, and was promoted to community development director on November 1st, 2013. And whereas, as community development director, Stan has directed and supervised staff of the Planning Division, Environmental Planning and Code Enforcement, SHIP Program, Metropolitan Planning Organization, Building Division, Rental Assistance, Agricultural Extension Service, and Soil and Water Conservation District. And whereas, during the time of Stan's employment, the county's population has more than doubled, and Stan has been integral in the review, establishment, and implementation of land development regulations and standards in guiding and shaping this community into a well-planned and highly desirable place to live, work, and recreate. And whereas, Stan has served this county and the public with utmost integrity, competence, and success, and has gained the respect and admiration of all his colleagues, co-workers, community leaders, organizations, and agencies within the county and throughout the state. And whereas Stan has not only served this county in his professional capacity, but has also bettered this community and all those who know him through his lifelong commitment to family, faith, and community service. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the board applauds Stan Bowling's efforts on behalf of the county, and the board wishes to express their appreciation for the dedicated service he has given to Indian River County for the last 35 years. And be it further proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners and staff extend their heartfelt wishes for success in his future endeavors. Adopted this 18th day of June, 2019. Stan, thank you very, very much for your 35 years of service to our community.
Thank you all. Sometimes cliches are true, I'd like to just say, thanks to God, and I want to spend time with my family. That's kind of where I am. I really thank God for providing through this job, for me, for my family, for other people, and just the opportunity to work with the community and the Board of County Commissioners all through the years. There's so many people I'd like to thank, and again, it's just like, you know, you watch this on TV and you hear people say, you know, I don't want to start mentioning people because you'll forget some, so I'll probably do that. Yeah, I think the first thing that I'd kind of like to say is, because I have people tell me, you know, don't go, but we understand why you want to go and that sort of thing, and I appreciate that. That's just the kind of support I've felt from the community and from everybody, you know, all the way through the 35 years. And I'm still learning. I feel like I just got off probation, you know, but you know, time to move on. But one thing that I really want to say is if anybody has seen anything good in me, and I don't mean nice, I mean lasting good, godly good, I would hope that maybe some of what you've seen is Christ in me. You guys know how my faith in Christ is really important to me, and I just hope that it's an encouragement to anybody to consider Christ or to maybe open up to more of His work in your life, if that's if you feel that. So I got to thank Him. I got to thank God first, and it's great to have my dad here. Not much would have happened without him, as it turns out. So it's good that he's here. My wife Angela, my daughter Rachel, kind of representing the family here, and without them, it's been great. It's been great for them, and they've sacrificed some too. So I appreciate that. But yeah, the list goes on. I mean, I've had great bosses. Mary Jane Vreeland, my first boss here, taught me how to do site planning, and now she's at work back in current development, part-time, helping us. Bob Keating, 29 years Bob was my boss, and I really appreciated his integrity and learned a lot from him. Joe Baird supported me a ton as community development director, and Jason's been phenomenal. And Jason is a smart guy, and I've enjoyed learning from him, and he's insatiable. You know, he wants to learn things and understand things, and I've really appreciated that a lot about him, and the board members and staff. The staff here is great. I've worked with Roland and John, who are still here, barely, but they're here, and for over 30 years. You know, get to work with guys like that who are, they're just great people, and they know their stuff. They don't talk as much as I do, but they know their stuff, and you're in good hands. You're in good hands because of the people that are here. You've always been in good hands, right? So and I thank them, and I really thank the frontline people. You know, when you get to be planner of the day, I get to be planner of the day next week, right? The job's not over. You appreciate people on the front line, right? And that's one of the things that I appreciate and I don't forget. And then my assistants. Administrative assistant's been wonderful, and I really appreciate that. I still work with two of them, Maria Bodrin and Kathy Cheris, and man, I'd be a mess without that kind of help. So yeah, I want to thank everybody, and I thank Dylan. Dylan, I really love your energy and your teamwork thing, and yeah, you're one of the closet planners around here. I love it. So we enjoy that. We enjoy that a lot. So really, it's been great, and I love my job, but I also love moving forward, which is what I need to do now. So, or moving wherever, sideways, whatever it is, I'm moving. So thank you all very much, and that's about all I have to say, I think.
Well, Stan, I'd like to begin by thanking you very much on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners for your 35 years of services, and very importantly, on behalf of the citizens of Indian River County. Because we all treasure this county, and it's largely because of the way it's developed. And clearly, you've had an integral part of that. So put a great burden on us as commissioners, because we're thinking of, what does somebody need in his retirement? He's head of the planning department. He's probably planned this all out. What could we possibly add to that? But thanks to other people working in the organization, we think we might have come up with something. One of the most important things to any good retirement is the right chair. And we understand how important family is to you. And it came to our attention that your grandfather owned and ran a furniture store. And so what could possibly be better than by getting a chair from that furniture store, which is almost as old as you are.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
It still has the dust.
great thing about this is it brings us back to the time Stan actually got here, times of bold colors, leisure suits. The only thing Stan and I are both missing is the hair. You know, so.
Right, right. That's wonderful. It's got the bowling chair company tag on the bottom. That's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. So
We're going to move this over now.
is the
towards-
county gonna withhold some, some federal withholding for accepting that? Guys,
No, I think what this actually does is save on dump fees.
okay, okay. All right.
If you're not careful, they'll give you the whole set.
We have 11 more.
Okay. Well, yeah, I wasn't expecting that, so thank you. I'll have to wear some of my old T-shirts when I sit in it.
I'll ask if any of my fellow commissioners wish to say anything. Commissioner O'Brien.
So I don't think everybody really realizes what a tough job Stan has had. When you're overseeing the building division, planning, code enforcement, that's probably where as commissioners, we get 90% of our complaint calls. And so being the community development director, there's a tremendous amount of pressure as these calls come in and looking for solutions. And the one thing Stan has always done is pretty much tried everything he could to get to yes, okay? And it was always great. You could sit down with Stan, say, hey, Stan, here's the situation. What can we do? You know, what are the options we can do, but still keep our code? Everybody keep their licenses. And Stan would say, well, you know, we could do this. This is one way we can get there, or we could do that. Here's another way to get there. And I just can't tell the audience how important that has been the time I've been sitting up here, that, you know, you can go to staff and find a way to get to yes and move things forward that are good for the community. So that was one of Stan's greatest traits, I think, being able to handle that political pressure coming from a lot of different directions, but still being able to find a way to get to yes, but still maintain our codes and the integrity of our community and our corridors and the visions we have to make this a great place to live. And then it mentioned briefly Stan's service to the community, but they've always been very involved in the foster family program, and I think that just goes to what, you know, Stan said about his faith and his belief in doing good things for the community. So, Stan, it'll be huge shoes to fill. I know we've got John and Roland for a little bit longer, but finding someone with all of your talent, your ability to get to yes and still handle everything will be real hard to fill. But I want to thank you for the 13 years I've been able to work with you, and it's been really great, and best wishes in your retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep on going. He deserves it. Stan, wow. I always knew you were a good man. Many years ago when I worked with Angela in Gifford Middle School with the band, and we had the occasion to meet the Stan. And I said, you know, what a man of character. What a nice individual. Everything was smooth. I did not realize how I was going to grow to appreciate that term, that you can do that you can make things so smooth, as Commissioner O'Brien has said, that you look for the option to make it happen. No means no, and no is a very difficult word to deliver. Just ask any one of us too. But you don't deliver the no, you deliver the options. And any time that I have brought down something to your office, you've always said, let's pause and look at it. Let's see what we can do. And sometimes the options, they're not always diamonds, sometimes they were lesser gemstones, but they were something for the community to appreciate and to get to where they felt they needed to be and where they were allowed to be. I also want to say that, you know, oftentimes you stepped in and did our invocations. They were priceless. And on a moment's notice, that stands for the element of the ubiquitous Stan, being there and always having an answer that can be commensurate with a resolution. And, you know, sometimes we're in the jackpot. You were there, always. And we really appreciate it a lot. You're going to be sorely missed. We always say, come on back, you know, visit us. Not too many people do. I don't know what it is.
Starting to see a trend here with that.
I don't know after this many years if you really truly miss the place, but there's always a spot here for you, even if it's friendly chat. And I want to say there's another thing. I want to thank you for resisting to keeping on the legacy of the Bob Keating PowerPoints. That meant a lot to all of us, and we appreciate it. But once again, Stan, I know Angela has a lot of lists. We actually, some of us actually gave her a few items, if you don't mind.
Thanks.
And I think you'll have fun working on them and enjoying this beautiful family and maybe spending some quality time. Dad, thanks. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stan.
Commissioner Adams.
Sure. Stan, I know we've worked together in multiple different roles throughout the years, and the one thing that I've always appreciated about you is your calmness and professionalism. You set a great example for everybody, with not just within the county, but throughout the county and multiple different agencies, and I really respect that. And I have enjoyed our conversations, our long and winding roads about planning and growth and all the different things that come with that. Learned a lot from you just by watching and by those conversations, and you will definitely be missed. I wish you much luck in your retirement. You deserve it, and I hope it's everything that you want it to be. And congratulations.
Commissioner York.
Well, Stan, 35 years. I've worked with you many years before I became part of the commission. And I was thinking back on a few folks that can't be here today. Richard Shear, who passed unexpectedly early, a few years after leaving work here at the county. And then some happier guys like Bob Wiggers, if you remember him, who went on to Winter Park. You know, you've set a legacy, both the people that have stayed here for a long time and then those who have come and then moved on other career paths. And you've made a difference in a lot of people's lives, both from a planning perspective. You know, you've changed their lives when a project gets approved, whether it's big or small. Sometimes that's I remember going to planning meetings with my dad when I was a kid, and how important it was to actually get a planning and zoning approval on something. That's a very important event. And I want to say, really appreciate you sharing your faith side. You kind of wore it without saying it by your actions, the way you treated people, and I think the calm demeanor on things sometimes can be derived from that. If you realize we're not all in charge here, somebody else is, it makes the day go by a little bit easier, especially when you have challenging things to work on. You have to go with what you feel is right and what's appropriate. So, and also your work with through your family, through other kids and helping. That's very well. You know, more people need to do that as well. And so enjoy your retirement. Hopefully it's not planned out, you know, like your daily schedule is. And as a parting moment or a parting thought, you know, something that maybe you can, since I know we have some people here in the room, at someday the urban service line discussion is going to come up. But I guess not with you. So we'll leave that line in the sand where it's at the moment. But at some point, that will get discussed in the future, I'm sure, with a future community development director. But thank you. Got to have something to do. You could come to public hearings and, you know, fill out a speaker card and chime in.
Or just enjoy your retirement.
Right.
Yeah, I'll think about that one.
You think about that. Okay. All right. Thank you for your service to the community.
Mr. Engel.
Stan, I've been really dreading this day, as many of us have. You are a great man, and you were fantastic to work with. And I can tell this community when I first got here 6 years ago, I attended a meeting that I thought was going to be very contentious. And I watched Stan's brilliance in his ability to kind of work the room, understand what was being said in the room, kind of, working with everybody, making sure everyone felt like their issues were heard and understood. And Stan was basically able to explain to a group of folks who may not have been exceptionally happy the different issues and explain that he understood and really calm down the room and really let that community express its opinions and its beliefs, its concerns. And they walked away knowing that they got heard and that their ideas were going to be incorporated, and they were. And it's that amazing type of trust that you were able to sort of get out there into the community. And I know that you've done that throughout this community. And it's just a really amazing talent. And so for me, I can tell you again that I've been dreading this day because, a county attorney's job gets a lot easier when you have an amazing staff, which I do have, but also when you have an amazing community development director. And so you will be missed, and just, you are an amazing person.
Thank you, Dylan.
All right, thank you. Well, you're dreading this day, Dylan. I think I may be dreading it a bit more, as I will have to try and replace someone who is largely not replaceable, and we will definitely move forward. But just want to say thank you to Stan for character and being that person. And I think, as Commissioner Zork said, that kind of living his faith and having that influence who he is and has enabled him to do all of these great things, and integrity, just integrity in the position, in everything he does, and kind of a calmness under fire in those contentious meetings, having a way of finding maybe a common ground, but also helping people, bring people together, maybe differing sides that aren't going to necessarily agree on a lot of things, but he has a talent for that. That will definitely be missed, and a way to phrase things well. And you saw him do it earlier today. He talked about me asking a lot of questions, trying to learn about planning, and it sounded like I was like smart during that thing, but what he was really saying is, this guy, I was having to teach this guy all kinds of things because he didn't really know anything, but it sounded really great to everyone, made me look good. But he just has...
You're still my boss.
and just just being that great leader to the whole organization too, and being an example for everyone else to follow. I think if we can all live our lives a little bit more like Stan, we will be doing better. You'll be missed greatly. Thank you for your service, and we will definitely miss you for quite some time. So thank you, Stan.
Thanks, Jason.
Stan, any last words after listening to all that?
No rebuttal, no.
Well, in that case, thank you.
Bring your dad in close. Dad, come on over.
Okay, we always say on three. 1, 2, 3. Do one more. 1, 2, 3.
No PowerPoint? Oh, later.
We'll now move to 5A, presentation on age-friendly communities by Karen Deagle, Board Chair, and Beth Mitchell, Board Vice Chair of the Senior Collaborative, and Richard Pruden, Secretary of the Florida Department of Elder Affairs. Good morning. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. I'm Karen Deagle. I'm the CEO of the Senior Resource Association, and I want to say congratulations to Stan as well. Being with the transit system, have worked with Stan and Phil for many years, and great person to work with, so I congratulate him on his retirement. I'm here today. I'm wearing a different hat than the CEO of the Senior Resource Association. I'm here as the chair of the Senior Collaborative of Indian River County. In both of my positions, I've witnessed a tremendous growth in our adult community. And with it comes a growing demand for programs and services that benefit our seniors and their families in our community. As the chairman of the newly formed Senior Collaborative, I'm excited to shine the light on businesses and organizations that provide care and products and services and meaningful social outlets for older adults across the socioeconomic levels. Our mission is to improve the quality of life of all Indian River seniors through a community collaboration of service providers, funders, and advocates. The purpose of our collaborative is to improve the quality of life of the aging, assist their caregivers and families in making informed decisions of services available, develop an alliance of senior service providers, funders, and advocates, coordinate a community partnership able to reach a broader audience of policymakers, service professionals, caregivers, and older adults. And it's now my pleasure to pass it over to Beth Mitchell, who is the vice chair of the Senior Collaborative, to say a few words.
Good morning, commissioners.
Morning.
Name and address for the record, please.
Oh, Beth Mitchell, Sebastian, Florida. As Karen mentioned, the Senior Collaborative is an effort that's been underway for about a year and a half, maybe longer. It came to the attention of some of the leaders through the United Way that there were some increasing needs, and so the focus was to support whatever might be needed to provide additional services, identify any problems, etc. So our group has grown over the last year and a half, and first thing I'd like to do is introduce Randy Riley. Some of you may know him. He's been in our community for many, many years as a banker. He now currently holds the title as Executive Director of the Senior Collaborative. And along with Karen and Randy, Meredith Egan with United Way and Abby Walters make up our executive committee. Our board members include a number of people, and I'd like to acknowledge them for the record, and I know it's kind of hard to read that screen. Teresa Baxter with the Gifford Youth Achievement Center, Patricia Breyer with the Johns Island Foundation, Peggy Cunningham with Alzheimer's and Parkinson Association, Eric Flowers from the Sheriff's Department, Darlene Forge with the Area Agency on Aging, Randy Gabriel with 211 Palm Beach Treasure Coast, Miranda Hawker with the Health Department, Louise Hoblitzel, Johns Island Community Service League, Dr. Paul Minotti with New Vision Eye Center, Eileen O'Donnell, Coastal Concierge Services, Home Care. We have representatives from the VNA, Kathy Orton. Trudy Rainoni is an advocate for seniors. Vicki Soleil is the Treasure Coast Community Health Representative, and Reverend Michael Ward from St. Mark's Angelica Church. We also have a number of other people that are considered members of this new organization. And as I said, we're developing the parameters for membership as we speak. So if anybody is interested in joining the Senior Collaborative, we would love to help receive more help. We also need to thank very much our funders. It's not easy getting a new not-for-profit off the ground, and the United Way stepped up in a big way in funding a part-time salary so that we could have somebody that was dedicated to the effort. In addition, we've received funding from Indian River County Hospital District, the Johns Island Community Service League, the Senior Resource Association, and AARP. And we thank those funders very much. The graphics that I'm showing you now are specific to Indian River County. And the median age in Indian River County right now is 52.2 years. We are 6th in the state of Florida in terms of aging population. The 65 plus population is 31, almost 32% currently. 14% of those people in Indian River County probably or possibly have Alzheimer's. 23% of them are veterans, and 16% of them live below the 150% of poverty. Almost 30% are below 200% of the poverty level. 68% of them are homeowners here in Indian River County paying property taxes. And almost 25% of those people live alone. As you can imagine, this presents new and different challenges to our community. And this last slide of mine shows you this pyramid. When I first saw this, it reminded me of the graph that we used to see in describing the baby boomer generation with the snake that had eaten something and the belly was swollen and whatever that snake was eating kept moving and moving. Well, here you can see on this chart that our community is definitely aging, and we hope to turn attention to this fact. At this point, I'm going to bring Karen back up. She has a few more words to say.
So it's my great pleasure to introduce the Florida Department of Elder Affairs Secretary Richard Prudhomme. We've asked Secretary Prudhomme to come in and speak about the senior population of the state of Florida and how it is affecting all of the communities in Florida. Secretary Prudhomme has 30 years in executive leadership with the state of Florida. Since 2011, he has served as the Department of Elder Affairs as Deputy Secretary, Chief of Staff, and Chief Financial Officer. During his time as Department of Elder Affairs Secretary, Secretary Prudhomme also led several initiatives, including the Dementia Care and Cure Initiative and the Revitalization of Communities for a Lifetime Initiative. Secretary Prudhomme received his Bachelor of Arts from the University of Kent in United Kingdom. In September of 2014, Secretary Prudhomme took the oath to become an American citizen and now enjoys dual citizenship with United Kingdom. I have known the Secretary for several years while working at the state level on aging issues. The State Aging Service Providers Network was thrilled when Governor DeSantis appointed him in this position earlier this year because we knew he would be a leader that would bring and accomplish great things. I personally enjoy our conversations with him because of his wonderful accent and that I happen to completely understand him growing up in a country that was once a British colony as well. So it's my honor to introduce Secretary Prudhomme.
Morning, Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to be here to talk about age-friendly, and thanks for the introduction. So I will tell you, though, as you know, when you wear red, coming over to the United States was not a good idea back then because obviously it was easy to take a shot at us. And that's why you guys are no longer a colony, you know. So, but I'm really pleased to be here today to talk about this important initiative. I think across the nation and around the globe, a major demographic shift is taking place. By next year, adults aged 65 and over will outnumber the children under 5 among the global population for the first time. I think obviously that has significant implications for how we live, work, and play. And here in Florida, that shift is well underway, and community leaders are facing and making critical decisions for how to move forward. Many of these local leaders are identifying ways to promote active, engaged, and healthy living for people of all ages. As I talk today, please bear in mind that there are both social and economic benefits associated with these decisions. Currently, there are more than 5.5 million residents aged 60 and older in Florida, and we have the highest population percentage of 65 plus in the nation. And as you heard, quite a few of them live in this great county as well. The senior population in Florida actually outnumbers the senior populations of 20 other states combined, as well as the total population of Alaska, Delaware, North Dakota, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Vermont, and Wyoming combined. By 2030, the senior population will increase to 7.6 million, an increase of more than 38%. The latest statistics show that more than 850 people move to Florida every day, and over half of those are over the age of 60. Going to the population pyramid, this is from the census in 2010, and you'll see on the left-hand side of the males and on the right-hand side of the females. And you'll see most of the bump there is in the 45 to 49 age range and up. So we took population data from the last couple of years and projected what it's going to look like in 2030. So that's what it is going to look like in Florida. It's going to be sort of one big blob. But you can see, look at that heavy aging population there from 65 plus upwards. So that is something that obviously we are aware of and need to plan for accordingly. Going to Indian River, that was what it was like in 2010. It's a bit more like what as older folks would say is a proper population pyramid back in school. 2017, a little bit different. And then 2030, that's what it's going to be looking like. That's only 10 years away. So if you look at 2010 compared to 2030, you can see it quite visibly there. So you're going to have a lot of people over the age of 60 to 64. Most of those people are coming to Florida every day. I think most of them are coming here. And obviously that's sort of a good thing because obviously you have a beautiful county, the weather is awesome, and so they have a lot of attractive things to attract people here. But obviously there are challenges in promoting the health and well-being of this growing and increasingly diverse older adult population. I think population aging, especially when the baby boomers reach ages 85 and older, does signal a likely surge in the use of long-term care services, which will also be influenced by how the disability rates evolve over time. So clearly the aging network, and obviously Karen Deagle knows a lot about this, is the task with a very important challenge to ensure we are meeting and will continue to meet the needs of our frail elders. But an important part of this challenge is the societal stigma and negative stereotypes about aging, including the beliefs that all old adults are frail, lonely, depressed, and physically and mentally impaired. People talk about the silver tsunami, equating the increases to a crisis, when in fact it should be touted as a success story of improved health and well-being as our older adults are living longer. Aging is also a period of growth, development, and increasing subjective well-being despite physical challenges. Not all old adults need assistance. Out of those 5.5 million over 60, we interact in the aging net with about 800,000 of those. There are also many incorrect stereotypes when it comes to older adults and the costs associated with caring for them. The longevity boom does indeed call for increased investment into the biology of aging and related medical issues. New and often expensive medical treatments make it possible or prevent or treat many more conditions than 50 years ago. The caregiver crisis is real and growing more acute. But the assumption that older people are an inevitable drain on healthcare resources is incorrect. The 10-year MacArthur study on aging in America concluded that once people reach 65, their added years do not have a major impact on Medicare costs. And according to the World Health Organization, aging has far less influence on health expenditures than several other factors. For example, between 1940 and 1990, when the US population aged most rapidly, aging appears to have contributed only about 2% to the increase in health expenditures. Technology-related changes were responsible for much of that growth. And anyway, medical expenses are highest in the period just before we die, but that's true whether we die at 18 or 80. And evidence suggests that how long we are sick affects spending more than how old we are. Another misconception is that older adults are an inevitable drag on the economy, and that is equally not true. When older adults move to Florida to retire, they contribute significantly to the economy. We contracted with the University of Florida Bureau of Business Research to complete a study that calculated the net economic benefit of the average retiree in Florida. And they contribute actually $2,900 more to the state and local economy every year than they consume in public services. Also, retirees, and indeed all old adults over 50, are fueling the significant, fast-growing, and often overlooked longevity economy, the sum of all economic activity driven by the needs of individuals aged 50 or older. These individuals contribute to the economy in a positive, outsized proportion to their share of the population. Despite being 40% of Florida's population in 2015, the total economic contribution of the longevity economy accounted for 54% of Florida's gross domestic product, about $478 billion, which apparently is the annual revenue of Walmart, just for a little bit of trivia there. But older adults also contribute greatly to their communities by volunteering. Last year, older adults volunteered more than 205 million hours. At about $15 an hour, that comes to $3 billion in potential cost savings to the state for their service. And importantly for the commissioners here, they're also engaged civically. Approximately 83% of older Floridians vote. So as you can see, not only do the older adults hold the demographic majority, they also make significant contributions to their communities in more ways than one. So it's more than appropriate that communities should integrate individual and community interests in order to facilitate living and aging well in the community. In response to the challenges and opportunities of our aging society, there has been an increased emphasis on making existing systems and structures more age-friendly. Everything points to the fact that the communities that fare best in the 21st century will be those that both tackle the challenges and embrace the positive possibilities that an aging population creates, essentially becoming livable communities. The World Health Organization recognized that communities need to do more to prepare for an aging population. Accordingly, they set up the World Health Organization Global Network of Age-Friendly Cities and Communities, and ARP is the national affiliate for that network, which does encourage states, cities, towns, and counties to prepare for the rapid aging of the population by paying increased attention to environmental, economic, and social factors that influence the health and well-being of older adults. In other words, creating a community that allows people to live and age well. We have about 29 communities in Florida right now, and obviously we're hoping that somewhere in Indian River there will be one coming soon as well. We know that the availability and quality of certain community features impact the well-being of older adults. Developed by WHO, the 8 Domains of Livability framework is used by many of the towns, cities and counties in the network to organize and prioritize their work to become more livable for both older residents and people of all ages. These domains were not developed by WHO on their own. When they developed this back in 2006, they engaged the focus groups in 35 cities worldwide, including Portland and New York. And they explored the topics that gave a comprehensive picture of each city's age friendliness. The topics covered the features of the city's structures, environment, services, and policies that reflect the determinants of active aging. It should be noted that topics had been identified in previous research with older people on the characteristics of age-friendly communities. So this domain of livability framework is a result of the work done by those community focus groups. They grouped them into 3 areas, as you can see here: built environment, social environment, supports, and services. Housing is a big one. For many of us, our current homes may be unable to meet the needs as we age. Older adults frequently find themselves living in homes that are too large, too remote, too inaccessible, or otherwise no longer suitable as their needs change. So what I'm talking about here is access to a range of affordable housing options, home modification programs, home maintenance services, and alternative living options to age in place. In some cases, aging in place home modifications can enable individuals to remain in their homes for many more years. Transportation is a really important one. At its core, a livable community is about ensuring that people can remain connected with the community and its resources and services as they age. Transportation alternatives are essential for the health and well-being of people who can no longer drive or who choose not to drive. The ability to drive a car to local stores, keep medical appointments, or meet friends at a local restaurant is a sign of independence that many older adults do not want to lose. People who live in rural areas or in places without extensive public transportation systems are forced to drive even when they no longer feel safe driving. For many, the only alternative is unwanted dependence on friends, neighbors, and families for rides to health and community services and to participate in social and recreational opportunities. Lack of transportation that prevents residents from participating in community activities often results in isolation, depression, and anxiety. Offering a range of affordable and convenient transportation options to maximize independence is important for older adults to remain engaged in the community and to be as socially and physically active as they want to be. I mean, mobility is an issue too. Even without an acute disability, people need help getting around. Because typically they live 10 years beyond what we call their driving retirement. the time when people give up their car keys. And also, even if educated about a range of travel options, older adults are sometimes leery of anything other than door-to-door services because streets are often unsafe places for them. Roads are made for vehicles and not for pedestrians. It can make simple outings hazardous for walkers, especially older adults, because the road may be too wide, the traffic signal may be too short, or there's a lack of safe and convenient crossing opportunities. Outdoor spaces and buildings. This is important to residents of all ages to be actively engaged in the civic, economic, and social life of the community. The physical environment of a town or city, parks, buildings, sidewalks, pedestrian crossings, and the natural landscape plays a significant role regarding the health, independence, and well-being of residents of all ages, but especially residents who have limited mobility or who cannot walk long distances. The social environment and supports and services, I'll be honest with you, when I first got into this, when I was talking to about this, I kind of rolled my eyes because it was like, oh, it's back to going to college again, Sociology 101, which I did not do very well at. But once you understand, you scratch the surface, you realize it's not just these social benefits, but there's more economic benefits to this too. And I think that's something that's very exciting about this as you consider this. As we know, older people do not stop contributing to their economies, to their communities. An age-friendly community does provide opportunities to residents who want to or need to work past traditional retirement age and encourages people of all ages to volunteer. And I've already talked to you about the economic benefit of that and also the economic benefit of actually older adults with regards to the longevity economy. Social participation, socializing with friends and neighbors who don't live in the same home as you is connected to physical and cognitive health. If you lack social ties in adulthood, if you're lonely, it's a healthcare equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. People who are lonely and isolated, as you saw that there's quite a few in this county, are more likely to incur medical and mental health expenditures. So that's something of an economic benefit that we can address. I'll fast forward respect and social inclusion. I think obviously a lack of contact between generations and a lack of knowledge about aging are two reasons why stereotypes that exclude older people from full participation in the community continue. And I think that's something that we can address through this initiative. Community support and health services. All people should have access to affordable health care and community services that help them live comfortably and with dignity. While it's important that care be available nearby, it's essential that residents are able to access and afford the services required. This is key for the health and well-being of older adults. And with regards to communication and information, staying connected with activities, resources, and people is key to optimal aging. Older adults receive information in a variety of ways, and no one way reaches every person. This is something that was designed by one of the staff. It's a little hard to read it, but it does go without saying that the 8 aspects of community life do overlap and interact. Respect and social isolation are reflected in the accessibility of the buildings and spaces and in the range of opportunities that the city offers to older people for social participation, entertainment, or employment. Social participation in turn influences social inclusion as well as access to information. Housing affects needs for community support services, while social, civic, and economic participation partly depend on the accessibility and the safety of outdoor spaces and public buildings. Transportation, communication, and information particularly interact with the other areas. Without transportation, adequate means of obtaining information to allow people to meet and connect, other urban facilities and services that could support active aging are simply inaccessible. Now, while many communities decide to tackle all 8 domains at once, others choose to focus on select domains. They are only suggested measures. Other general measures include community walk scores, proximity to retail stores, cost of living, poverty rates, as well as crime rates, and I'll be honest with you, in Florida, the degree of emergency preparedness and abuse, neglect, and exploitation. Little communities cannot exist in Florida without having a great disaster preparedness plan, but also the increasing incidences of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. We need to create communities that prevent these guys and this happening at the start. It's all very good catching them after the fact. By that time, the damage has been done. So this is very, very important that we consider that. Obviously, as we considered, we went through this process. I had the opportunity to meet with the governor and was successful in convincing him that this is something that the entire state should do. So that is obviously me and the governor when we were joined the Age-Friendly Initiative. And this actually makes sense. I mean, coordinating and aligning age-friendly efforts into a statewide movement does represent the natural progression of the grassroots work that started over 20 years ago to help foster an environment that positively impacts the health and well-being of older adults. So what does it mean? It does not mean that you'd have to join ARP. I have not joined ARP, even though I get these things every month in the mail to imploring me to join. I obviously shred them immediately. This does not mean the same thing either. All this means is that the elected leadership has made a commitment to actively work towards making their town, city, or county, or in our case, the entire state, a great place for people of all ages. It enables us to live and live well, and live and age well. Someone asked me now, well, what happens now if the state's involved? All these people, all the other 29 communities who are engaged in this, does that mean all of a sudden they have to sort of turn around and change things? Well, no, it doesn't. In actual fact, so what it means is all of a sudden we have the governor's support. It means I can come down and present to local communities like I am today about the importance of this. I can engage with other state agencies about the importance of this. For example, Department of Health, we have many, many public health units. There is a grant from the Trust for American Health and John A. Hartford Foundation who are looking at making the public health units more age-friendly. I mean, that is, which is, you'd think that would be sort of common sense, but obviously they have focus on children, which is great, but they also need to focus more on the older adults. So we're looking at that too. That's something that I can help with to encourage communities to, in their public health units, to embrace this. For example, Department of Transportation, they have a Safe Mobility for Life program. And that's looking at sort of looking at specific needs of Florida's aging road users, including pedestrians. So I'll be working with them to encourage them to come down and work with communities to address these situations. We also have the Florida Housing Finance Corporation, who provide interest-friendly loans to builders who are looking to build developments that encourages them to make a portion of these more age-friendly, more consideration of the various services that older folks might have. There's a thing called the Sadowski Fund, which is also looking at sort of housing options as well. So I can make that, obviously encourage those folks who run that fund to come down to communities to work with them to address those housing options. So I see it's more like a facilitator to talk, bringing people together to address the needs of the communities that are identified by the communities. The other thing is the healthcare sector is paying increased attention to these age-friendly issues. They're beginning to shift the focus and realize that healthcare companies need to begin to make investments in those 8 domains that we talked about, that are not, while not traditionally healthcare related, do have such a huge impact on health. Philanthropic foundations. I'm obviously going to be meeting with the executive director of Florida Philanthropic Foundation Network to encourage him to reach out to his partners there in each community so they can be part of the solution moving forward. We should not have to rely on the federal or state monies. It needs to be community-driven for this, so I'm very excited about that. I had the opportunity to go to Washington, where I was asked to present on age-friendly issues in front of the Senate Special Committee on Aging. And was talking about what we're doing here in Florida, not only with this, but also dementia-friendly and dementia caring. And as a result, they are looking at the Older Americans Act and amending that to encourage and incentivize communities to become age-friendly. The Older Americans Act is the largest social vehicle for addressing programs for aging population, and has been since 1965. So there's a lot of people looking at this in a different way, and I think that's going to be the exciting thing. I'm going to go back to this. It's important, really, that I don't particularly care for the age-friendly term. To me, it seems it's not all-inclusive as it should be. And so I was talking to ARP, the director from Washington, and as far as he was concerned, he said, the age-friendly designation is a process. A livable community is the outcome. And I think that's important to recognize. And I think it's livable for all, so we can all live and live well. And I think that's important. But it's also important to note that this whole designation is a process that is and always will be community-initiated, community-driven, and community-owned. I mean, neither the state nor ARP will be dictating how exactly communities will become age-friendly or a livable community. Rather, we'll work with the communities to ensure they achieve the goals that are relevant and specific to the needs of that community. We will facilitate, we will encourage, we will reassure, but ultimately success lies with the community. In that regard, it's a true grassroots effort, as it always has been. So in summary, clearly the aging demographics means that aging networks are tasked with the important challenge, as I said earlier on, to ensure we will meet and will continue to meet the needs of frail elders. But our society has a long tradition of finding innovative approaches to challenges. An aging population is an opportunity to use our social and technological ingenuity to develop solutions to our changing needs that can take and move us all forward. As we live longer and healthier lives, the longevity and productivity of our society and communities will also expand. So by restructuring public policies on issues like work and retirement, transportation, appropriate and affordable housing, healthcare, and community building, we can make the most of the aging population as an important source of social energy. And I'll finish with this one slide, especially in light of the changing demographics in the next 10 years. We will always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. So again, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I will be able to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
And Karen, is that your presentation?
Pardon me?
Is that in your presentation?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to Commissioners' Matters. Commissioner Adams.
Sure, so thank you for moving this up. I just wanted to follow that presentation with a discussion by the board on the issues that were presented by the Senior Collaborative and the Department of Elder Affairs in the hopes that we could move forward with directing staff to work with the Senior Collaborative to attain the designation of an age-friendly community. I think that in light of the demographics of our community, it is a good idea to get in front of this. It's not just for the aging population, but the changes that in the toolbox that this would allow us to have access to, and those best practices and different things are also good for our younger population and our children and families. I know Phil and the MPO has already been incorporating some aspects of the Safe Mobility initiative into their planning on roads. I know Phil was at about 3 years ago when we had the fair over at the Vero Beach Community Center. I know we were talking about it at that point.
Yeah, it was a senior safe mobility fair, and it included car fit where seniors could come. We would make sure the mirrors were adjusted right, they were sitting in the right position in the car. Just basic safety issues that sometimes they take for granted. To me, we really can't get enough designations like this. We probably take in $2 more per capita than a typical county in DOT grants and funding. That helps us. It helps us keep the tax base lower and the tax rate lower. You know, it looks good on grant applications. It shows cooperation, it shows partnership. There are technical tools that we can avail ourselves of. So these things are things I'm an early adopter of.
Thank you. And I have enjoyed those conversations and those initiatives that we've worked on there. I mean, I think the bottom line is the reality of the situation in the county, and just for me personally, is that people are aging. My mom will be 70 years old this year. She's very proud of it, so I'm not embarrassed to say that. But we have already talked about what happens in 10 and 15 years when she might not be able or want to live in the house that I grew up in that's the size that it is. You know, what are our options? And is a mother-in-law suite something that might be good? I mean, as most people know, my mom, she's very active, way more active than me. I hope that when I get to be 70, I will be that active. But my point is that if individual households are having these conversations, then we as a county and as policymakers need to start having these conversations, because 10 years goes by pretty fast, and the next thing you know, you're behind the 8 ball, and the time to have made certain changes and incorporate these things into our planning and into our community has passed. So I would like to make the motion that we move forward with directing staff to work with the Senior Collaborative to attain the designation of an age-friendly community. And I would look, thank you, Commissioner Zork, and I look forward to the discussion.
Motion from Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Zork. Any comments to my right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I kind of agree and support everything with Commissioner Adams said, but I also agree with the Secretary that the age-friendly, you know, I'm not sure that's the greatest term. I think a livable communities is much better. And when I put on my economic development hat, you know, one thing we're trying to do is recruit some of the younger population, the millennials and things like that. And so I don't want to be known as just a place to go and retire when we're trying to recruit college graduates and 20-year-olds and things like that. So I much prefer the term livable community, because I think that would address a much broader population. And I know you had said you didn't like age-friendly either, so I'm kind of following your lead there.
If I may. Actually, when I went and talked to Ocala, they had the same issues. They have a heavy equine industry there, and they have the same population demographics, and they were trying to look at ways of encouraging younger people to stay, because they were all leaving. The jobs in the equine industry are basically, well, shoveling you know what, and that's about it. So they were trying to bring an industry, and it was not. But once we talked about the demographics, and we talked about the longevity economy and encouraging older adults, all of a sudden they have two industries. They have equine and aging. And all of a sudden, the longer people were staying, because the older population with their disposable income that wanted to retire there they're creating these jobs in the healthcare sector, entertainment, and leisure. They wasn't just flipping burger jobs. These were important jobs that younger people wanted to have. So all of a sudden, they've seen a flip. Now they have, like I said, two industries, equine and aging. So I know what you're saying is that we're not just be age-friendly sort of means only older folks can come here. I think the livable community that's what we're talking about. We're creating a community where we can all live and live well. And that means younger people as well who can be employed in some of these well-paid jobs that older folks are willing to pay for. And I think that's something that we need to think about. But I agree with you, sir. I do not like the term age-friendly. It is livable communities, and that's something that we'll be working from. The state is promoting to that term. As I told you, it's a designation. It is not. The outcome is a livable community. And I think that's something we'll all be talking about as we move forward.
So I would encourage us maybe to use that term as often as we can while moving forward to get this designation, because we do need to attract all ages and demographic groups. So that was just my comment on.
Thank you. Commissioner Fletcher? No. Okay. On this one, I'm going to be voting against the motion. I mean, I've seen, there was a long presentation, and it talked a lot about statistics, organization, structure, membership, but very little about what it actually does, and I haven't seen really what it does and how it actually helps in the community. I have obviously, people know me much more suspect about government than the Secretary. The Secretary said that the state won't be dictating terms, but perhaps not today, but this conversation is clearly about getting more resources in the future. And as the monetary aspects of this become more important, the state will get involved, and the state will start dictating terms. We see that all of the time in all sorts of programs. And Phil said that we can't get enough designations, but again, this is how we build more government and more bureaucracy. Interestingly, one of the committees that I really like that Phil leads is the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board Committee. But in our last meeting, it turned out that we had to have a review of the bylaws because the state mandates it. And we had one bylaw change, which was the addition of another state person, which the state mandated. And if you count up all the people from the state and others that had to come there were like, I think, 15 different people. And I actually congratulated the person who was mandated by the state to join our committee meeting after the meeting and said a pleasant thing about blah, blah, blah. And she said, yes, it was just a long drive from Palm Beach this morning. So, she had to spend 3 hours on the taxpayer dime to come to a meeting that lasted less than an hour to perform various bureaucratic functions. So I certainly have more of a distrust of the state than a lot of people. So for those reasons and others, I'll be voting against it. Commissioner Zorc?
I'm fine, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And since we're going to be taking a vote on this, anybody from the audience care to comment on this matter? There being none, the motion was by Commissioner Adams, seconded by Commissioner Zorc. All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Aye. Matter passes 4-1, Commissioner Solari dissenting. Great, and with that, we now move on to information items. There's just one dealing with a vacancy by committee. We now move on to the consent agenda. Anybody care to pull anything from the consent agenda? There being none, I'd like to pull 2, I and J. Anybody else from the board? There being none, I'll ask the audience if there's anybody here who'd like to pull anything from the consent agenda for discussion. There being none,
Move approval as amended.
we have Motion to approve as amended by Commissioner Flesher, seconded by Commissioner Adams. I pulled both matters. I'll begin by,
You want to vote on the,
I always like to skip the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0.
Friendly.
8I, which
is there something
FDOT
about memory in there? or not?
FDOT Amendment Number 2 to County Incentive Grant Program. I'm pulling this, it deals with some roads that we're going to be doing, and my comments aren't mainly directed on this, but if we note, talks about a road that began just a few years ago, or we thought just a few years ago was going to cost $9 million. And it's now going to cost about $15 million. So it tells us the price of building roads has gone up significantly in the last term. But I think we need to reflect back a little bit going back about 10, 11 years ago. During the Great Recession, at the start of the Great Recession, I'd say we were significantly behind in road building. We were able to use the Great Recession in order to catch up on what I think is a premier government function, building roads in our community, and we did a lot of road building. And we were able to do this because we had significant reserves. And these reserves, I think, were basically thanks to the wise management of Joe Barrett and Jason Brown. And because of that, and because of those reserves, we were able to build all of these roads when the road cost was a lot cheaper. And I think because of that, our community is much better off today. And I think it's one of those little things that people miss, that good financial management in the background, which has been driven by our staff. So I want to thank Jason, I want to thank Joe Barrett, if he's listening, for the work they did, and all the public works staff who got these roads built when they were affordable. I think it also tells us a little bit that at times like this, when the cost of building new roads are about as high as they're going to get, maybe we don't need to go full pedal to the metal. If we relax a little bit and don't overspend, we'll be in better shape when the next recession comes, and I'm one of those who believes that another recession will eventually come. It'll be after I leave this board, but it will come. So with that, I just want to, again, thank everybody who made that possible. I'd be happy to get a motion
Now,
to.
where was all this when I was on a diatribe about 66th Avenue and overspending? on
Oh,
the road?
I'm not
I
arguing
mean,
that.
this would have been very appropriate to add to that discussion.
I mentioned some of that actually at that time, and I think
know
we
you
may
did.
be.
Mr. Chairman, move approval.
Well, we're going to give the motion to Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner Adams. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. 8J is a work order dealing with the Dodgertown, and it talks about beginning the Jackie Robinson Training Complex. And again, this is on here because the Board of County Commissioners bought the old Dodgertown golf property, and at that time, this board made a commitment to improving the property at a good pace, which would include a walking trail at least and some trees along 43rd Avenue. And I just wanted to point out to everybody that our Public Works staff has already brought this forward in just about 2 or 3 months' time since we've bought the property. I want to thank them because for me, given the personal work I did talking with different city council members, I think that, us having this Board of County Commissioners so quickly follow through on our word is most important and sends a good signal and is actually a very positive thing for building positive relations with the city of Vero Beach. So I want to publicly thank the Public Works Department for getting this through here so quickly. Those are my comments.
Move staff recommendation for
Second.
8J.
We have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Flesher. Any other
Chairman?
discussion?
Yes.
Commissioner Zork.
Yes, and I brought this up with the county administrator on this as we're looking at the scope and the layout of the walking trail in the area, is to look down the road if there was ever going to be a need for a second quad field or something, to plan the sidewalk to where you have an area where you could put in a future amenity or future use item that wouldn't completely disrupt the trail pattern. At least think down the road where something might need to be down the road and not have the trail in its particular path.
But on what property would those things be at, like the quad field you're talking about?
Well, on where we're working on the trails for the,
In the golf course property?
correct, yes, sir.
Fine. Any other comments? Anybody from the public? So the motion was by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Flesher. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. We now go to public items. The first is the biosolids moratorium extension, and this is a public hearing, but for the discussion, I'll go to Mr. Reinkel.
Thank you very much. On July 17, 2018, the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners approved a moratorium on the land application of Class B biosolids. On January 8, 2019, the board voted to extend that moratorium another 6 months. As the moratorium is expiring in July, the county attorney's office has drafted an ordinance extending the moratorium for another 6 months. The moratorium, I have to say, has been a team effort. I want to thank the hard work of Senator Mayfield and Representative Grahl in making sure that the Florida legislature had adopted protections for the county's moratorium. I also would like to thank the landowners. I can say the Presleys and the Corrigans have supported the county in its efforts on this issue. I also want to note that the city of Fellsmere is considering a similar ordinance on first reading on Thursday this week. It will be then having the item on second reading at its city council meeting scheduled for July 18th. And finally, I just want to recognize the Utilities Department who's been working hard on this issue. You know, I have the simple job of simply just drafting these ordinances, but they've been really studying the issue and coordinating with all of the various state entities. So with that, the County Attorney's Office recommends that the board open the public hearing, take public comments, and then vote to approve the ordinance as presented. And with that, I will be available for questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board? Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe the DEP has released their draft rulemaking on this, and I know that I believe our Utilities Director, Vincent, is going to watch one of the hearings on live stream and then attend one, and I believe Jason is going to be attending that one as well. Just a question for Vinny or you or Eric. Have you had a chance to look through the proposed rulemaking, and what would be a quick summary of, is it good, is it bad, is it helpful to our cause? Because I took a quick look at it, and my initial gut review of it was it's not really where we want to be, but I'll leave it to you guys to give a better answer.
For the record, Vincent Burke, Director of Utility Services. I have to confess I have not had a chance to look at that in detail, but I do know that it is amending the 62-640 of the Florida Administrative Code. We had expressed some concerns to the TAC members that some of the proposed changes that the TAC had recommended would not be enough with respect to water quality and with respect to the groundwater table and the phosphoric index. So we're going to take a look at that, and we're going to be prepared to voice our opinion on the Thursday of next week, which is down in West Palm Beach. I believe there's 3 meetings, one in Tallahassee. There's a Wednesday meeting on the 26th, I believe, in Orlando, and then on the 27th and Thursday. So between now and then, we have some homework to do to get our documents together.
Okay, when you get that summary completed, could you flip it to us, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? With that, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak on this issue? Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Dan Lamson. I'm the Executive Director of the Indian River Neighborhood Association and a board member of the Clean Water Coalition of Indian River County. And I'm speaking with both of those hats right now just to thank you very much for the last year of the moratorium, for all the work that you guys have done, your staff has done. It's really made a difference, I think. And as you've seen, the kind of the perception of biosolids has moved, I think, partly because of the actions you've taken. So both of those organizations, I'd like to thank you guys for what you're doing and encouraging you to keep the moratorium going until something maybe more long-term and permanent can happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Last chance from the public to speak on this item. Public hearing is closed. Commissioners,
Move staff recommendation.
we've got a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
We move on to the second public hearing, which is the tethering ordinance amendment. Mr. Dubrall, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill DeBrawl on behalf of the County Attorney's Office. We have today a public hearing for the enactment of the tethering ordinance. You've seen this a couple of times before. Briefly, the ordinance provides a definition for tethering. It provides tethering for more than, it prohibits tethering for more than 1 hour when the temperature exceeds 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and it prohibits tethering during any severe weather and limits the weight of the tethering or chain that can be used on the animal. It's basically common sense. This is supported both by folks that brought this to you and the Humane Society as well. Just ask that you open the public hearing, take any input from the public, and staff's recommendation is to approve the ordinance amendment. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. DeBrawl? There being none, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak on this item? Anyone from the public care to speak? Good morning, ma'am. Name and address to the record, please.
Yes, Ilka Daniel from the Humane Society of Vero Beach in Indian River County, Vero Beach, Florida. I would like to thank all of you for putting the time and the effort into this and making this possible. It is going to make Indian River County a much more humane society in the terms of animal suffering. And eventually it will, I believe, reduce calls for service as the public becomes more and more educated on the pitfalls of potential tethering and the and the alternatives that are available to them. So I would like to thank you very, very much for that.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? There being none, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners,
Move ordinance forward.
we've got a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Flesher. I'll just make one comment. I'd like to thank both Mr. DeBrawl and Chief Stone. They are basically the members of our group that really got this shaped up and moving, so your efforts are very much appreciated. Any other comments from the board? There being none, the motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Flesher. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Next is a public hearing dealing with an ordinance prohibiting the retail sale of dogs and cats. Good morning again, Mr. DeBrawl.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is the ordinance concerning the prohibition of retail sale of puppies and kittens. It does provide for the sale of puppies and kittens at retail so long as they come from a shelter or a rescue agency. So commonly, I think if you go to a pet store on the weekend, you'll see Halo or something like that at one of the big box pet stores that will be adopting animals out there. Most of the time they're kittens. This ordinance does not prohibit that practice. It only addresses the pet stores at retail that come from the puppy mills and the kitten factories. You've heard the testimony that's been offered to you as far as the reasoning behind this. Again, it has the support of the Humane Society as you received the email from the new director there. Again, staff has coordinated with different counties, and this is a draft, a borrowing, if you will, from Seminole County that outlines everything here. As we've indicated, there are no active pet stores that are selling puppies and kittens at retail at this time, so staff's opinion of the possibility of a lawsuit, which has been pretty popular across different areas of the state, are greatly reduced in this instance. So again, staff's recommendation is to go ahead and conduct the public hearing, take any input that you would have, and approve the ordinance. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. DeBrawl? There being none, this is a public hearing. I'd be happy to open the public hearing. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this item? Good morning. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Nicole Capobianco. I live at 7065 21st Street Southwest. I'd like to thank all of you for all your hard work in this. It's been quite the journey. I purchased a pet from the local pet store that was here. Miss Maggie was kind of my driving force through all this. I guess she's, so it's been almost 2 years since I bought her, and it was a rough ride, but she's alive, and hopefully nobody else will have to go through not only what I went through, but there was a lot of people in the community that walked into that store and bought an animal, and you know, and you purchase a dog, you don't go in with intentions that you're going to bring a dog home and it's going to be dying in your arms. And hopefully now, with this ordinance in place, nobody else will have to deal with that. It's unfortunate that, you know, growing up, my parents bought us a dog from a pet store in 1987, I think. No, 84. But back then, I think things were a lot different. Now, unfortunately, they've gotten into commercial breeding and they don't care about the animals. I'd hate to see what my dog's mother looks like. So again, I thank all of you and all the help I've gotten from the community with all this, especially Joe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki.
Anybody else from the public wish to speak on this item? Once again, name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Ilka Daniel from the Humane Society of Vero Beach in Indian River County. I would like to commend, again, each and every one of you and Nikki for bringing this to the forefront. The file on my desktop actually has the name, I've nicknamed it Maggie's Rule, because Maggie is one of the dogs that survived. And unfortunately, we've seen the heartache in Indian River County that this has brought, and the health concerns that it brought to the residents of the county and the animals that have suffered and died and affected families. And I can't commend you enough for moving forward with this, because there is a nationwide effort to address the puppy mill issue, because these animals are sentient beings and they're literally reduced to being nothing more than reproductive machines. And I'm very, very proud to say that I hope Indian River County will be a place where that won't be occurring. So thank you again very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? If we could hold the applause, please. This is a business meeting and it just helps us move along a little faster. Anybody else from the public? There being none, we'll close. Oh, sorry. No, come on.
Ms.
Hi, my name is Joanne Hall, 1869 Gray Falcon Circle, Southwest. And I just wanted to take my time to thank you guys. This was something very important to me. And you guys promised and you delivered. So thank you very much.
Anyone else from the public? There being none, we'll now close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Fletcher?
I don't know if we were.
It's pretty quiet up here, so feel free.
All right, well, I appreciate that, and I think it's going to be quieter in Indian River County when it comes to ill-raised pets that people expect to be great additions to the family, and their sense of hope and understanding of what it is to have a healthy, happy addition to the family will now be increased. When we move forward with this ordinance that will eliminate the local distribution of truly unhealthy and disease susceptible animals and distempered animals that their expectations are otherwise anticipated to be introduced into the family. I'm not short-sighted. I don't believe that we're going to put an end to this, but if each jurisdiction does this, then perhaps maybe those large factories and mills, unfortunately, that have to be called that house God's creatures, will be eliminated eventually. It's going to take a lot, but I'm proud to say that I would like to move forward for Indian River County to be on the books by eliminating the distribution of weakened creatures in distribution in Indian River County. So with that, move this ordinance in the spirit of Maggie as well.
Second
We've
was
got
the discussion.
motion by Commissioner Fletcher, second by Commissioner Adams. Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, just a couple things that I'd heard from the public after the first draft ordinance, and one is under the definitions in pet shop. we define it as an establishment that may be permanent, temporary, or virtual. So I think we cover the fact there's a concern that, well, what if somebody's selling dogs and cats online? And so by the definition, I think we've wrapped that in. And also in there, it's a violation for them to sell in any type of public establishment or right-of-way or flea market. So I think we've addressed the mobile, quote, pet store rolling into a street fair or something and selling out of that. So I think we closed a couple loopholes there, so I'm glad that we've done that. And then I'd like to reiterate my comments when the draft came up. When we pass an ordinance affecting retail sales, it can be a real slippery slope, and you kind of feel, where do we draw the line? Do we want to stop stores from selling cigarettes or alcohol and other things we think may be bad? And it can be a really, really slippery slope. The more I looked into this, though, and saw what was going on, and then also the lack of the state and the federal agencies in charge of implementing existing rules to prevent these abuses, it just became clear that we couldn't count on the state or federal level, and that as a local government entity that we had to take action. And so for that, I'm fully supportive of the motion and the ordinance, and glad we're moving it forward. But I just want the public to know this isn't something I take lightly when we start banning something at a retail level. I think in this case, it's justified, but it really is not something I think we want to do a lot of, going forward. But I think in this case, it certainly is where we have to step up, particularly since the state and federal level just aren't doing the right job. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments? There being none, the motion was by Commissioner Fleischer, seconded by Commissioner Adams. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. And this is a good time to take a break. We'll take 10 minutes.